All right, and we'll get started in just one moment. Once everyone is settled, I am going to say, just for demonstration purposes, I will actually dispense my paint onto my plate. I'm going to say you do not need to do that. Okay, so let me just get myself situated and. Yes. Oh. And for those of you painting at home, you don't need to dispense your paint either. You can leave it. Leave it right in the cups and scoop them out as we go, which is fine. Okay. And one more. Okay. I'm just going to say it once again. If you did just arrive, it is a little breezy, so just find the wind. Okay. Okay. All right. So we got everybody's comfortable and ready to go. Okay. So one thing I am just gonna I'm just gonna stress with the two brushes. We'll use that flat brush. We'll use for the majority of our artwork. That little brush I'm going to refer to as a pencil brush. In a matter of speaking, use it like a pencil, more or less. We'll use that for our cats, which I'm going to do one step at a time. And maybe some of the tree branches too, we'll use that brush for as well. So I'm going to say to everybody, let's have some fun and let's grab that big brush. And I'm going to have everybody just wake that brush up, go into your water, and give it what I call the Ovaltine stir. Just stir it on the bottom of that water, and give it, if you don't know what Ovaltine is, that's the stuff you have to stir for like a half an hour before you actually get chocolate milk. So I'm going to say it's the same thing with the brush. So give it a light little tap on your napkin so you're not dripping wet, okay? And I'm going to have everybody just take, again, I'm going to be on the plate this way everybody can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to start out, and I'm just going to take a nice healthy spoon of white and just put it somewhere on my plate. Maybe 2 spoons. Why not? Okay. And one of the things I am going to suggest is that when you do mix your paint, not to mix your paint up like you're mixing a big pot of sauce. Okay. Let your color be loose and slightly messy, to give your artwork a little bit more character and looks a little bit more natural. Okay. All right. So I am going to say load up both sides of the brush, and for me, I'm going to just start to mix a little bit of. I'm going to take one little. I'm going to call it a micro smudge of black, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take one little smudge, and this little bit will overpower. Your white. So I'm just going to smudge that. I'm going to smudge that right on the end of my plate. And I'm going to bring that little bit of black. Okay, and for those at home, I just did a little smudge. And all I'm going to do is take one little bit, and I don't want my white to be completely white. I want it to have a slight little tint to it. So I'm just going to make sure that I load my brush on both sides. Okay. And one little bit, I'm making up a really, really light gray color. Okay? And for those at home. Excuse me. Oh, we have a black snafu. Yes.
I'll swap out yours.
Yeah, that actually, mine did the same thing. Yeah, mine did the same thing. That's not going to go either. That happens from time to time. So. Yes, I think.
Right back.
Yeah, that one did the same thing.
I'm gonna go get actual.
Hold on.
Okay.
Yes, we're not gonna be using that much of it, just give a little squirt on the plate,
Okay.
just like, okay, yeah, that's it, you got it, yes. Yes. Yeah, they got more around the black. So, that's, they actually just some right on. Okay. All right, so. Yes, if you are having a little trouble with the black, we will come around and give you guys a little sort of a problem. That happens from time to time. Especially, and I'm gonna say, don't go out of your way. Don't go out of your way to make like a medium gray color, anything like that. And I'm gonna say again, don't overmix your paint. And I'm gonna say to everybody, when you're ready, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find somewhere in the middle, and I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to just spiral outward. And I'm not gonna go that far, okay? I'm gonna say, try not to get too caught up on any one step, okay? And I am going to continue and just grab a little bit of white, and maybe I'll take a little more white on top of it. I don't want this to be like too dark, okay? And I'm just doing a nice little spiral, and then I'll work my way back in. Okay, and I may do this a couple of times. I don't want this to be too dark. This is going to be the brightest area on your artwork.
Bobby, can you
Yes.
go back to step one, I'm just doing the white first and then the black on
You
it?
want to take white and one little smudge. I took one little smudge of black. It's like a half a pea size. I call it a micro smudge.
I mix it.
And you're going to loosely mix them, yes, and do that right on your plate. Absolutely.
Thank
You are welcome. So I'm going to say to everybody, once you have this nice bright center, and again, I'm going to say, don't be caught up in any one step, okay?
Bobby, my goodness, my black is hard.
Okay.
I got you.
Okay. You got it. Dun, 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 dun. Yes. Woo-hoo. That happens. That definitely happens. Just be mindful of the wind. Folks, I'm just gonna let you know, I paint outside almost on a daily basis. I'm accustomed to this myself. So if you feel a little dust, just get it on your canvas board, and you should be fine. Okay? So I'm going to continue. So I'm gonna take,
Bobby,
yes.
so first it's the white circle and then the black. Okay.
You want to mix them loosely on your plate. And Kathy, if you look, that's it.
Okay. And then just thank
Okay. That's it. Woo-hoo.
you.
You are welcome.
Oh, that's dope.
So I'm going to say, once we have that first section done, I am going to grab more white, okay? And I'm going to grab another small little, the sound effect says it all. I'm going to grab one little smudge of blue. One little smudge of blue, and this one little bit will be more than enough. If you have a relatively dark gray on your brush, I'll say yes, you can definitely clean that brush off. Oh, look up here. Yes, exactly. So I'll take a little bit of white. What's that? Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
White and blue.
I took white and one little smidge, micro smidge of blue. And I'm going to make up what you would consider like a really like powdery, like powdered blue. I know. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm going to go around what we just did. And the best way I can explain this is I'm gonna use my brush almost like a windshield wiper, where you could just take your brush and I'm just going to go around and just outline around that bright area, okay? So I'm gonna go right around this nice bright spot there. Yeah, and I'm going to use the end of my brush, and I wanna make sure that this is nice and soft. So when I'm done with this step, I will actually just go and maybe very lightly, I'll rewind my way in just a little bit, one little bit.
So it's around the outside of the.
Yes, indeed. I'm doing almost a trace. Okay. And I'm going to say, if you don't push your brush that hard, don't push your brush that hard over that seam between what is and what is going to be. You can get a nice soft blend. You just take your brush and just ready, go right around it.
So much fun.
Yay, awesome. So again, I did just add a little bit. And I'm going to say, try not to get too caught up on any one step. We are going to work our way away from our moon. Okay, I'm going to say, as you're going, if your moon does look a little dark, when we're done with this step, you can clean your brush and just take one little smidge of white and just go right over that center. Boom. Okay, so I am going to, little by little, I'm going to take a little bit more blue into that bit of white I have, and I'm going to darken this up. And once again, I'm not going to overmix. I'm not going to overmix. And what I'm going to do is, if you see my brush is messy. Don't get too caught up in mixing a perfect color or anything like that. Let your color be relaxed. Okay?
So it's a little darker.
Yes, and I'm going to work my way away from the center, and I'll use my brush again, almost like a windshield wiper, and I'm just going to work my way in just a little bit each time, so I don't have like a ring effect. I don't want to have like that. Darker ring, darker blue, darker. You don't want that. So I'm going to say, always like take your, what you did and just go over and just very, very lightly. Don't be afraid to stay in the same spot for a little while. And I'm just going to show you that. I'll take my brush and I'm going to be really, really loose. I'm not going to push. Okay? I'm not going to push. I'm going to just keep working my way outward more and more. And we load your brush up. Always load both sides of your brush. And don't be afraid to load it up all the way to the metal. And let that color really be messy. I'm going to say one thing, one suggestion, that you want to leave your paint smooth. You don't want to leave it thick, or you don't want to see like any kind of texture or anything like that. If you see anything like that, it could take, even outside, it could take maybe a day to dry. So we don't have to, we don't want to have to come back in a, few days to finish our artwork. So let's say smooth that thing as best you can. And after I do a little bit, I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to smooth this out just a little bit and continue. And I'm going to paint the remainder. I'm always, you know what I'm going to do? When I smooth it out, I'm going to say, I'm not even putting any extra paint on my brush. I'm just taking what's on my board already and just smoothing it out and letting it relax. So I'm not going to smooth it out with extra paint. I'll just take my brush and I'm going to just soften this up. And don't be afraid to do a very, very light, and I'll take a very, very light push to what I'm doing. I'll push my brush hard to dispense the paint, and then I'll do a nice soft little blending. Yes, we're going to work our way all the way out to the edge of our canvas, and we are going to finish the rest of our background, which is going to be always trying to do this nice little ring. I'm going to say I'm always going to work in a circular manner.
But you go darker.
I am. What I'm going to suggest, though, is, and I'm going to just say that at some point, your blue is only going to get so dark. Okay, so don't be afraid to let it get a little lighter sometimes. Don't be afraid to get it a little darker. I'm just going to say, try to avoid doing what I call Looney Tune rings. You know what I mean? Where you've got like a blue ring and then a darker blue and then a lighter blue. Let everything soften up. move that brush around. And the only thing I'm gonna say in this type of background that you really have to really focus on is making sure that your center, that moon, is nice and bright. Okay? Nice and bright. So when you're finished with the rest of this, don't be afraid to take one little dip, okay, of that white, and just go right in the center, and I'm just going to spiral my way out. Okay. You guys got really quiet. You guys thinking too hard. Don't overthink it. Just have fun. And again, I'll always do nice long brush strokes. If you're getting a sore arm, I just heard somebody say that. Okay, so that happens for one of two reasons, and the most common one is you're gripping your brush too tight. You're fatiguing your arm because you grab it too tight. Relax your brush. Just don't make it so relaxed that you throw your brush and it lands on your neighbor's lap. Okay? And believe me, I've seen it happen, and it wasn't a little kid either. So again, if you're getting a scratchy feel on your canvas, it means you actually don't have enough paint on your brush. So I'm going to say if it feels scratch, that rough texture, that means that you're underloading your brush or you're moving your brush around too fast or something like that. We are painting the whole thing in this manner. Again, don't be afraid to just have some fun experiment. Everybody's got a completely different touch. So again, don't try and paint like me, and don't try to paint like the person next to you or anything like that.
All blue then.
Yes, I'm going to suggest that you do try and keep a little white on your brush, just a little bit. Okay, it kind of helps everything kind of stay together. Yes, indeed. Okay. And for me,
I didn't start out center. I was like,
all the way to the end. And I'm just gonna point out that at this point, I've just got these corners that I'm just gonna start to fill in myself, and I'll follow the same brush stroke pattern for the most part, even though I'm coming to these little corners here. So I'm just gonna say, I don't want to paint myself, so I'm just gonna lower it for 1 second, okay? And I'll show you like on this corner here where I'm just about ready to go. I'll just take my brush and I'm just gonna go right in this corner here and just finish it out just by taking my brush and letting it just arc into this corner. Okay, and arc into this corner. I'll do this on all 4 corners. If you see any kind of what I call little canvas pixels popping up, just stay in that spot for just a minute and push that paint into those little spots that are not filling out completely. Okay. I'm also going to say, if you're having a little bit of an issue reaching the very bottom, don't argue with the easel. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take your canvas board, turn it sideways, turn it upside down. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. And so I'm just going to continue. And again, I'm just going to go right into these corners here. And
what if I want to make my gray bigger? Can I do that?
of course you can. There's I'm just going to reiterate this. There is no right or wrong. Okay.
But I want to.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to say that your that center, that moon, is your staging for your cats. Now, for me, although I had to put my cat on a diet, my cat was really, really heavy. And every time I paint a cat painting, I have a really bad habit of making my cats. Yeah, they're and you'll see even this on this one too. They're not very small cats. They're pretty big. So if you want to do cats that are a little more relaxed, I'll say. Give that center a little bit more space. And again, excuse me. So I have a really bad habit of painting my chin when so I'm gonna try and behave myself and not paint the library's microphone. And you can see I'm just going into the corner. And for me, I'm done with this section. So I'll flip my canvas over and I'm gonna leave it like this anyway, why not? I'll continue on the bottom section. And again, don't be afraid to just have fun. Don't be afraid. Don't second guess yourself. You're not going to get a failing grade like that, you know. And well, it shouldn't. I'm going to say that, and I said this in the beginning, no two people paint the same. And part of that is how you mix your color. How you move your brush. It's really like, it's almost like a fingerprint. I refer to that as your painting fingerprint. And it really is the truth. When you try to go against that, that's when questionable things happen on their artwork. Okay? And I'm gonna say too, in your mind's eye, you always expect your artwork to look a certain way. And it never does. It's always a surprise. And I'm gonna say one of the things about being creative is putting that aside and letting that go. Okay? It's when you second guess yourself, and I do it myself. I've been painting for 46, going on 47 years. And I'll still finish a piece. I'll finish a piece and say, oh my goodness, what did I do? And then my lovely wife will put it up on our website, and it's my most popular painting that I have to paint every couple of weeks.
Well, you need to give us your website.
And I'll do that if anybody wants. So even for me, and like I said, I've been painting for going on 47 years. I still do that to this day. And I have to really say to myself, it's okay that it's not what you wanted. And I'm just going to do these corners. Ooh, awesome. So for me, folks, I'm going to say that I'm almost finished with this particular step. So let's say that you are finished. And you have your sky, how you would like it. I'm going to say that we clean this brush off, and I'm going to do that Ovaltine stir. And again, bottom of that jar, stir it up longer than you shake. That's why I refer to it as the Ovaltine stir. Okay. And then I'm just going to give it a nice little tap. Give it a little twist too. Stir it up, and just wipe it on your napkin. So whatever is still in your brush, just kind of remove. Okay. Okay. And so right now I'm at this point. And for me, you know what? I'm gonna brighten up my center a little bit. Yay.
With the white.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say, if you want to, all you have to do is, and I'll show everybody at home. I'm just gonna take a little touch. I'll go straight into white. I'll just do one little touch after cleaning my brush, if you desire to do so. I'll make sure my brush is clean and dry. And oh, that's really nice. Yay. Okay.
The baby wipes.
Actually, yes. I'm just going to, if you want to brighten it up, I'll just go one little touch into my white afterwards. Yes, indeed, and just spiral your way out. When I say spiral, a lot of times people almost misunderstand what I mean by that. So to brighten this up, I'm actually going to hold my brush straight on, just like this, okay? And I'll find the center, and I'm going to just lightly touch, and I'm going to spiral outward. And as I work my way out, I'm going to release the pressure, so I'm not even touching my artwork anymore, okay? And if you want to smooth it out, all you have to do is rewind it. and just go the other way. Okay? Just make sure that you follow that circular pattern. And when everyone is ready to go and finish with this step, we will go on. Woo. Awesome.
I can't believe you're teaching. I mean, you're 5 years old, and you're so brilliant. That's wonderful. Oh,
She's
really smart. You know, that she- and then what I'll do is I'll share it with her. Because that's nice.
yeah, no, she really did. She turned me on to somebody in PBS. John Nagy, he was a gentleman on PBS, predating Bob Ross.
Yes.
Yes, predating Bob Ross, if anybody knows John Nagy. So,
Right.
yay, very nice, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Nope. Nicely done, nicely done. Okay. Very good. Very good, nice. You being in the center, I don't get to see you, but very good, nice. So I'm gonna say, once again, when you are at this point, we do need to clean this brush. I'm just gonna kind of reiterate one thing. Keep this in mind. If your paint is really, really heavy, when we go to do our next step, instead of painting on top of it, you're gonna wind up carving into the paint. You want it to be dry. So if you see anything like a lift on meringue or anything like that, or it doesn't have, for me, and I'll show this at home too. I don't know if you can catch this or not. My painting is almost 100% dry, and you can tell because it's got a flat look to it. It doesn't have like that shiny look to it anymore. I can go on here and I can paint right on top of this right now. Okay, so I'm gonna say if your canvas panel does look like your paint is heavy, just take that brush and you don't need paint on it, just wipe it off on your napkin and just move that paint around a little bit so it's not, you're not gonna carve into it, okay? Okay, and I'm just going to just pause for a minute and just make sure everyone is with me.
Hold on, that's not right enough. Yeah.
Yes. Brighten that up. Yes, indeed.
Everybody's good. Nothing's in the chat.
Yep, actually, I can't really, I see a few people.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, we
Okay,
have
all right.
2 couples.
Just want to make sure that everybody can hear you okay, yes? Yay, awesome. All right, I can't hear you a little loud. You would do the same exact thing, just go right this way. Yeah, you know what? I will show you. Okay, so. So I'll just go straight in and go. Just go with this spiral. And if you see, I'm not even gonna push my brush. I'm just gonna let it kind of very gently, just make sure you tap that on your napkin so you're not dripping wet, okay? And you go, as you work your way out, release your pressure. And then, no, that's okay. That's not gonna do anything. Yes, indeed. And, okay. So, once everyone is ready to go, we are going to swap brushes. We're going to use that round brush. Yes. And then on at like 11 o'clock on the rule, there's a pot at 11 o'clock. I put my branches there, and you've got the blossoms there. So I'm saying that you might want to come. Yeah. Yes. One thing I am going to say that we just did a piece of a puzzle. So if there's something on your canvas that you're not too happy about, and I know that your eye, no matter what, is going to be drawn to one of those one little spot that's just driving you crazy. The nice thing is that especially around the moon here, yeah, I've got my 2 packs on here. You're not going to see those edges, and here you can put a branch over that edge, you know. So don't stress it. You know, if I see pokes in your forehead, I'm going to say, yeah. And I'm going to say at some point, put down the brush. At some point, just make sure.
10 o'clock tonight.
That's all right. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. And I just want to make sure we are okay. It's my first time doing a hybrid. I haven't done one yet. It's the first. So. Okay. I think we've got a couple of people still finishing up. So while we're waiting for everybody, we're good at home too?
Yeah, we're good at home.
Yeah. All right, well, actually, we're doing the branches yet. No. Okay, so I'm going to just impart a little touch of wisdom. Things are only as difficult as you let them be. And that really is true. If you build up in your mind, I can't do this, there ain't no way I'm going to be able to do that. It's not going to happen, or any other excuse like that, you're going to find a way subconsciously to not do it and mess it up. So, so I'm going to say, try not to get caught up in anything, and don't set yourself up to fail. Don't do that. This is just for fun. Okay, so it looks like we're good, and I'm going to say to everybody, we're going to take that brush, we're going to put it down, and we are going to go to the round brush. That's the this other one that we got here. Okay, so I'm just going to do a bit of like painting 101 for a second. Okay, so this brush is so versatile. A round brush is a wonderful thing. Now keep in mind that this brush ends in one little hair, which means that you can actually go on your canvas and do a scroll, you can play tic-tac-toe and all that stuff, as long as you don't take your brush like this. Yeah, bam, you know, and start to really, you know.
What is the name of this brush?
This is a round brush.
Oh, it's called a round brush. It has that little point.
Yes, all round brushes come to that little point. I refer to this as like a pencil brush, because if you do push it too hard, that point is just you're gonna lose it, it's gonna break. Okay?
Does
So,
it come in different thicknesses, or is it always the
there
same?
are, yes. You can go from really, really tiny to some that you could actually, they're like big.
Right.
I have a few of them myself. Here's what I'm gonna say though, with this brush. When you take this brush and you use just the end of it, yes, you can get a nice fine line, okay? But as soon as you take this brush and you start to angle it, you go from using the end of it to using the long of the bristle. And you get a brush stroke that is as wide as this brush is, okay? So if you take your wrist and start doing this kind of thing, you're going to get like these big swipey brush strokes. So I'm gonna say when you do any kind of a sketch with this brush, okay, you do want to use, this is more of an arm motion, okay? This is more of an arm motion. I'm going to say try not to hold your brush back too far or anything like that. Don't come at your canvas like a shooting dart to the dartboard. That's not a good idea. For me, I have a very, very pretty bad tremor in both of my hands. So for me, I actually literally just use my pinky and I'll just move my arm to get the brush stroke that I'm looking to do. Okay. So keep in mind that we are going to do the cats first, okay? And I'm going to do a rough, almost like a rough sketch of what we're going to do, and then we're going to fill around. So if you're looking at your sketch and you're like, well, this cat is a little too small, or the shape is wrong, you can always go outside the line, okay? You can always work your way outward a little bit, okay? So I'm also going to say the way you load this brush has a lot to do with how it's going to move on your artwork. So I'm just going to say one of the things we do want to do is just go into water, give it a little swirl. We're going to wake this brush up, and I'm going to give it what I call a wetting tap. Yay! And then I'm going to just drop it flat on my napkin, and I'm just going to give it one little, and I'm going to show everybody at home too. I'm just going to roll it. Let me see if I can do this. I'm just going to roll it like a rolling pin. And what this does is it dries the metal and keeps your brush nice and sharp. So each time I do a little bit with this brush, I'll sharpen it up again. So I'm pretty fresh. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just do like a slight little touch in my black. Okay. And I'm just going to load up a little bit of black on my brush. Very little. A little touch, okay? And the first thing I want to do is I actually want to do the center. I'm going to start where the tails are, okay? So I'm going to find just at the bottom edge of my moon, okay? And I'm going to do the heart. So this is going to be the tail. So I'm just going to go just like this. Okay, and I am going to do, start with that. I'm going to do a heart first, but I'm going to let the top just cross just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to let the bottom, and I'll show everyone at home, this does not need to be perfect, and I'm going to come right around, and it's a heart that the top crisscrosses and the bottom crisscrosses. This is the hardest. See how it happens? Inside. Okay. See the crystals? Yes. Oh, there we go. And you can see that. That's good. Good. I would come here and then on, let it continue. I want this to be a tip. Okay. Thanks. Yay. Jack. Oops, yes. Good. Okay, awesome. Okay, and once again, I'll show it home. Here we go. I think we got a little. Let me back up one little bit. There we go. Did anybody else need to see this? We good? Yes. Oh, yes. Very nice. Yes. Good. I will paint over these lines. Okay. So I am going to continue. So I'm going to say, try to stay with me the best you can. All right. So at the bottom, I'm going to turn these crisscross heart lines into cattails. So I'm going to just continue both of these and let them kind of point outward just a little bit. Okay, this is going to change it from just a heart to a cattail. And this comes out like, see how it comes outward and it gets a little flat and it looks its way. Yay! Very good. Woo! That's it. And I'm gonna let these lines go beyond the perimeter of my heart. Okay. No, that's fine. I'm gonna go. That's fine. You are good. Oh yes, we're good. Very nice. Good job. Okay, so I am going to continue. I'm gonna say, I'm noticing a few people are kind of underloading their brush. I'm gonna say this, if, and I'm gonna just say this again. Everybody's got a different touch. If you are going and you have the same amount of paint on your brush and it's not working for you, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to load this brush up, okay? The only thing you don't want to do is go at your artwork with a big blob of paint on the end of your brush. So I'm going to sharpen it up by just taking, and there's a couple of you that I'm just going to suggest that you watch this. I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to go on the bevel of the plate and I'm just going to spin it back and forth. So I have my brush loaded up. However, it's still adhered to the shape of the brush. So it's like sharpening up a pencil. Boom. So if you're having those issues, don't do what I'm doing because I said so. Do what's comfortable for you. Okay? So I'm gonna say the next shape I'm gonna do is going to be it's almost like a skinny, tall letter U almost. I want this to almost be taller than my heart, and I'm just gonna go, and it's almost like, it can be like a horseshoe, and I'm just gonna do this kind of thing here like this. I'll do this on both sides. Okay, so I'm gonna do that on both sides, and we'll come around. Okay, and I'll come around. And again, these lines do not need to be skinny, and I illustrate that. They can be different. Okay, and I will actually connect my tail to the shapes. This is going to be it is just a tad taller than the heart. Yes, indeed. Okay. A little taller, yes. No, that's fine. And you see how it's going up and down. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. See, your cat is here. Okay. So I'll be looking that way. This cat isn't too sure about that cat. And that's all right. Yes. Yeah, it happens. So yes, indeed. So I've got these two shapes here, and I will just turn this into one solid piece where I connect my tails to the bottom. Okay. All right. So we did. Yep, I didn't go on it.
Oh,
I was like a 0.57. All right. So I've got. Yes, you want to tell me the rest of your, and I think we're good. Woo. Okay. Again, keep in mind, we are going to paint these shapes in solid, not obviously the tail, you don't want that to be solid. We're just going to paint over those lines to make them a little bigger. Okay, so when everyone's ready, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the hind leg. Okay, I'm going to do the hind leg. This is not going to be on the outside of the shape. It's going to be slightly on the inside. And all I'm going to do, and I'll do this on both sides. I'm just going to just do one little. I'll do them on both so you guys can see. This is just the hind leg shape. I'm just going to let it, almost like just if you were drawing a fingernail. Okay, let me get everyone at home first. Okay, it's one little bit on the inside, and I will come around. This is just the hind leg. Right here. Okay, and it does actually just kind of connect. Okay. Yes. And that's, yes, it can be as big or as small as you like. Okay. Yeah. It's just like this is just behind. Okay. And just make sure that your no, that's fine. You know what? You can let that. Say, okay. I'm gonna say I'll let you don't do this now. Okay. Just make sure that your tails are connected to those shapes and Yeah. Yeah. Could we get a pump? Yeah, a black. Yeah, that seems to be a. Yes. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a kind of, it's like doing like if you're doing like a fingernail. That's okay. You can let that go. That's fine. You can just skip right over this step. And I'm gonna say you're fine too. Good. Very nicely done. And did I miss anybody? Woo, we're good. Okay. So I am going to make sure everybody's got a nice fresh brush. Okay. All right. So. Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I just want to make sure that the top of these two shapes, I'm gonna let them kind of converge just a little bit. Okay. So I'm just going to let them flip. I'm just going to let them kind of curve in on each other just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to let them kind of converge. This is a small little micro step. Okay, so I just want to make sure that these tops are pretty close together. You don't want to have it too wide. And I just did.
I went this way. How am I gonna do that?
That's okay. I'm going to say that in the agenda. I'm going to say what that means. What that was. Like, just keep it as it is. This is just bring that to the touch.
So touch the top of the ear.
No, just right where it is. Right there. Go and. You go right there. Just go right there.
Touch the body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think you have to do it. So, yeah. It's there. That's it. Yes, good. And I'm just making sure that this isn't too wide. I just like finish it so they're kind of pointing it at each other. That's it. Yeah. So all you would do is we just go like this. In there, and then in there. A little bit. It's like a stack. This is like a cat stack. Almost. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say at this point, we're going to need a lot of control with this brush. So I am going to clean this brush off. I'll do that nice little Ovaltine stir when you're done with that step. And I'll do the wedding tap, of course. All right. Yay, I like it with these little jars. It sounds like a real thing. I usually use plastic, plastic cups, and it's not as dynamic. It's very boring. So, okay, again, I want to make sure my brush is pretty controlled. I'm going to do the outside of the ears and the outside of the face. I'm going to do all in one shot. Okay, so I'm going to do almost like an open. And this is as tall as the face. So I'm going to do a circle that is open at the top. Okay. I'll go just like that. I'm going to do this on both. And I'm going to come around this way.
Kind of like a U.
It is, but it's like if you're going to make a circle, but you're not going to close.
Right.
Okay.
And those ears.
This is the outside of the ears. Yes. You can make an adjustment to the shape if you like. After we fill it in, and I'm just going to go here and I'll do that one too. This is the outside of the ears, top of the ears, and the outside of the face. Hey. There we go. That's it. They're like, all right. So usually the way I explain this is you don't want cat ears, you don't want Yoda. Okay, you don't want Yoda, and I always say you don't want Batman either, where they're standing straight up. It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, so it's not Yoda and it's not Batman. It's in the middle. Okay, so I am going to finish this off. I am going to finish off this shape just by, and I'm going to just go in. And then I'm going to connect them. And I'll come around, On the inside, just stand down. Yay! Yes. No, yeah, that's fine. So I'm just coming in. Oh, you did a good job. Good for you. Did anybody? You just closing it up. Yeah, that's it. Yay, that's it. Very good. And make sure you guys. I never lie. So all I'm doing is I'm just doing the inside. Get this down, and then I'll connect these two lines here. Just a little bit. That's it. So yeah. So I'm just gonna say what we just did essentially. We just did essentially like a rough draft or a sloppy copy in a matter of speaking. Okay. So I'll finish my shape, and all I'm gonna do. I'm going to connect the ears, that's right. However, now that I have my shape, I'm going to fill this in. But believe it or not, now that I got that shape and I'm all closed in, I'm going to go from my tail. And I'm going to go from that little crisscross. And I don't want this to be terribly perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and just go right around, and I'll do my tail to the cat, and I'm just beefing up my line a little bit so it's not too skinny. All right, and I just want to make sure that I'm going over it to a point where it kind of flows. You don't want it to be too scratchy or anything like that. So in other words, you don't want to take your brush and do like these little swipes, as I was saying earlier, especially with the tail. So I'm just going to go over the tail to make sure I do have a nice kitty cat tail. And I'm just tracing right over it. This is not anything technical. We're just doing a simple trace. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So from here, I'm going to start to fill in from my kitty cat ears. So if you look, and I'm going to say, just look up a second. You see how I have my brush pointed upward? I'm going to keep my brush pointed upward, and I'm going to fill in. Just go right into the tip of the ear and just pull down. This way I'm not arguing, trying to fill this in, okay? Just right in here and just touching with the very, very tip of my brush, the edge of my brush, the point, and just pull my brush downward, okay? I'm just pulling my brush downward. This way, and I'm going to say I'm going to fill in the whole shape. You're coloring everything in. I'm going to say after you color everything in, yes. I'm going to say, don't be afraid to smooth out your lines a little bit on the outside. Just don't keep working your way out to the point where your shape is unrecognizable. Just going to suggest that you trace from the inside of your line, and don't be afraid if it's not exactly adhering to what you drew. That's okay.
Bobby, what did you say about the tail? I missed that.
So we just want to make sure, like for me, my tail was really skinny. So I just beefed it up a little bit, just by going over it and tracing right over it. Some people don't need to do this at all. And then we're filling it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes, indeed, yes. I will go in and just make this a solid form. I'll say solid form. Where I've got my cat's torso, his hind leg, the whole thing. And I've got my cat filled in. And she was so big, she lay on the back, and she went. I really did think that's really good. Nicely done. So I'm gonna say, don't be afraid. As long as you don't overpaint, just fill those shapes in solid. And anything you want to, smooth out. Like I tend to take from where the head is to where the body is. I'll just smooth that out a little bit so it's not too extreme where the head touches the body. And don't try to, do it so both cats look the same either. That's not what this is about, and it shouldn't. All right. I know, that's right. And I'm gonna just say, we've got this section finished off here. All right, and I am going to say.
Julie's asking, can you show us? Let me see.
Okay, so yeah, once again, so all I did was I just want to make sure that I have the tip of my brush pointed at the edge here, so I don't have to really argue with the tip of the ear and really work it too much. So I just go in here, and when I get down, like for me, when you look at this, that's a little wavy. So I'll actually take my brush and I'll smooth this out a little bit. I can do that. That's not a problem. I can smooth this little section out here so it's a little bit more like that. So just don't do too much. And all I'm doing is filling this full shape in. Okay?
Thank you.
And for me, I'm an upside down painter. That's just how I am. So I'll just finish it off. Okay? And just using that brush. I'm going to say to everybody, when you are finished with the two cats, we are going to finish brushing it up. Okay? Yes. That's it. It's a silhouette. Yeah. So I'm just going to say, what we need to do is brush like this. And no, you're fine. This, let that dry. What you have to do is take this brush, not this big one. Take this brush, take white, and take that gray up, and all you have to do is just go like this. And just like this. You take your brush like this. See how it looks like that? And you just take a little gray and just go and brush flat. Yeah, right now we just the top of the head. See how it looks. This kind of good. I just want to take a little time back there. Well, that's a little before she knows her. Hello. No, you're fine. I was, okay, so, right.
Jeff.
Oh, no, no, that's fine. We're just gonna not say anything about the house. No, that's fine. So we are going to, so, I've known this gentleman since 1971. How are you?
You gotta look home, right? All right, man. Hey,
Hello.
So folks, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna make sure my brush is clean. Do that little Ovaltine start one more time, and I'm gonna say at home too. We are gonna go onto our tree. I'm gonna do my tree in a couple of steps. What I am gonna say is, so I want to actually do, I want to do the branch that my patch is sitting on first, okay? So I am going to load this brush up. This is the black again. And I want to make sure that I do sharpen it up, give it that nice little twist so I've got a little bit of control. But I am going to suggest that you really do load this brush up the best you can, okay? All right, so I'm going to start at the very, the edge of my branch. And I'm going to say, don't try and make it like a mug tree where everything's standing out straight and perfectly aligned. It's nature. Don't try and do anything like the letter S or the letter C or anything like that. Let the branches kind of be a little angled and what have you. So don't be afraid to, from time to time, just lift. And I'm going to start all the way somewhere over here. And I'm just going to take my brush, and as I go, I'll go right underneath my pass. And when you want a wider brush stroke, you would just push your brush harder into your canvas. Okay? I'm not going to let this brush exhaust. I'm going to load this brush up, and I'm going to keep this brush loaded. Okay? And I'm just going to go right over the cat's bottoms. Okay? And I'm going to take this branch across, and I'm just going to, little by little, and I can push this brush and go right down, boom, somewhere down in the corner. Keep in mind, branch are always thickest where they touch another branch. Okay, so don't finish your branch and where it goes into another branch, let it pinch off and get skinny. That's where you want it to be a little bit heavier. So I'm just going to give this just a little bit of a little pizzazz, and all I'm going to do is, once I, again, load that brush up. Don't try and do this neat or anything like that. Okay? Load that brush up, no fear. So I've got my first branch. This is the most important one. The rest of them, you can go rogue on and do whatever you like from here. Okay, but the branch that the cat is sitting on is fairly important. Hey, if you want to leave it just with this one branch, and you don't want to put any other branches and foliage and what have you, I'm going to say that's fine too. However, keep in mind that you do want this to be solid, because this is a silhouette. So I'm just going to go ahead from here, and for me, I'm just going to add a couple of alternative branches. Yeah. I'm glad I put those weights on your easels, because they would have gone. Wow. Yeah, that's a wind gust right there. So I am going to just say, like for me, and somebody else mentioned it too, that the like the top corner of their moon was not like great. They weren't crazy about it. So don't be afraid to go in those spots that you're not too happy with and go over them with a branch. So for me, I'm just gonna go in here and just take my brush and push, and I'll go and boom, just lay some of these branches in. Again, you can do as many or as little as you like. Many or as little as you like. And don't be afraid to, don't be afraid to like take some of these branches, let them crisscross and do whatever they want. If you want them to be a little bit more straighter, that's fine too. But I'm gonna say, just have some fun with this, and we'll do a few little branches. You can do some up on top, on the side, go and just have some fun with it. Try not to overthink it. And as long as you have nice paper, you can actually see that natural split right there. Right there. Oh, and this is where it really, oh, that's now. Jack, okay, oh, it's really nice. Yes.
He's making fun of my cats.
Now. So again, I'm just gonna say, don't go branch crazy. Don't do like 18, 20 branches or what have you. Just have just a few where you feel like you want to put a couple of them. I always tend to just do like maybe 2 or 3 little splits. You know, and just where I can put some foliage and stuff, just to give it a little pop of color. And that's pretty much what we're doing. We're just setting ourselves up to have a nice little pop of color. All right. So I've got maybe a couple of branches here. Don't get caught up in your branches being really skinny either. You're gonna put foliage on the end of these branches, and I'm gonna say that's gonna cover up what we got on the end if you're not that happy with them. Okay. I'm gonna say at some point, let the brush down, clean it off, and let it go. Woohoo! Yay! And I think I'm gonna do one more. Call it a day with the branches. I could sit and do this. I could fill the whole canvas with, I could do that. So again, don't get too caught up in any one step. When you are finished with this step, we'll do that nice little Ovaltine stir. And I'm gonna say legitimately go in when you're done and stir this thing up more than you think. And I'm also going to say that any paint that's on the metal, just swipe it off on your napkin and go back into water. That color will transfer into the next step, okay? All right. So for me, I've got some paint on my metal, so I'll swipe it off, go in there, do that nice little Ovaltine stir, do that nice little wedding tap, of course. And yes. One thing I'm going to say, especially with the round brush, one of the common things is people will take their brush and go blam, 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 blam into the bottom of their cup. And what that does is it actually pushes the paint further into the metal. So as you go into paint in your next step, it's going to drag its way out. So when you stir it, it opens up your bristles and releases that paint. And that's how you want to do it. So I'm going to say when everyone's ready to go, make sure that brush is nice and clean and nice and sharp, even though we're not going to use it like that. But we're going to wait for everyone to good. And the fun part is the foliage. Yay.
Now, if it's Halloween, you can make it orange.
What's that?
If it's Halloween, you can make it orange.
We do yellow, orange. So,
Huh. Welcome.
Yes. All right, so I'm just gonna say to everyone, I'm just gonna say one thing to everyone. When we go to do the foliage, I'm gonna start with this, this is that flat brush. Not the flat brush, this is the pointed round brush, excuse me. I'm gonna say for those of you at home, you can use either brush. You can use whichever one you're comfortable with. The method is still the same. I'm gonna say for everyone in person, I'm gonna make sure that this brush is not pointed. So I'm gonna take this brush and I'm gonna, yes, paint your hand with it. Make sure that this brush, I'm gonna give it a nice little flick. I'm gonna do this with either brush at home. You can do this with the flat one, or I'm going to give my brush what I call crazy minion hair. Okay. And you know when the minions, they got that, yeah. If you haven't seen it, then I'm sorry to reference something that you're not gonna understand. I want to make sure that my brush is not flat. It's opened up. It should be almost like a mess. Look at this brush. The messier this brush is, the better your foliage is going to come out. So and again, this brush is a mess. Crazy minion hair. Mess it up. Dry, fuzzy brush. Now, I'm also going to say that okay, so I'm going to say to do our foliage, I'm going to go, and I don't want to take my brush and do this kind of swiping motion. I'm not going to swipe. This is a dun, dun, dun. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to tap, and I'm going to find the end of my branches, and I'm going to take white and red. Definitely take white. I'm going to say whatever you do, don't overmix. And I'm going to take my, and I'll show everybody at home too. I'm going to just grab a couple of spoons and I'm just going to blam, blam, blam. Sound effects definitely helpful. Okay, so the smaller and more delicate you want, the more delicate you want your foliage to be, the less aggressive. Yeah, I'm almost doing like the strawberry shortcake kind of thing. And you can see that when I go onto my artwork, I want to do like one or two little test plops on my plate somewhere. And what this does is it allows for when I go onto my artwork that I'm going to get more of a scatter brush stroke. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to suggest that you don't just outline your branches and it will look like a weird patch. Okay, so you want to just go right over the end of your branch and just make sure that you don't get too far down your branches. And I'm just going to start out by just doing a couple little, I'll come up, maybe down a little bit, and I'm just doing these little tappings. Okay, and again, if you don't want it to be as aggressive, I will come around. Okay, so I'm just doing on the ends here, and I'm just taking my brush and I'm just starting outside, actually outside my branches to start off with. Yeah, all I'm going to do is just go between the two. And you see this? That's what you want. Yes. Okay. And all I'm doing is I'm just going to go in here. And I'm making sure my edges aren't too. Stop. Oh, yeah. Nice.
I took a picture, but you're not in it.
Yeah.
Nah, it looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, yes, you can. And all I'm going to do is I'll try like the end of a branch and just tap it down. Yes, it's a light tap. And yes. So, Yes.
Just, you said that you
So, yes, the messier your brush is, the more, here, tap, 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 tap. Yeah, yes, it's happening. And yeah, just, try to avoid to go, palm palm, palm palm, palm palm. Just as long as you avoid those kind of things. And, if you have OCD, do this step with your eyes closed, please. If you are an educator or anything like that, this is where you really, really have to disassociate as much as you can. Don't be afraid to take a little bit more red sometimes a little bit more white. And I'm just tapping around, tap, tap, tap. All right, and tap, 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 tap. I'm going outside. Don't keep it constrained to where your branches are. Just have some fun with it. All right? Yes. And again, this is just, well, you don't want to put one here. Absolutely, yes. Right. Yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, yes. Whoever just said that, you are correct. So I'll go in here and add maybe a couple little spots of, well, maybe I'll go over here too. Who knows? Why not? At some point, I'm just going to say, whatever you do, don't go down the branch. That's a little bizarre. It's a little bizarre. You know, it's the trunk. You know, you usually have to call a tree doctor when something like that's happening. So I'm just going to say to everybody that when we're done with our foliage, I'm going to say at some point, please put down the brush and let it go.
Can we initial it?
And yes, indeed, I'm going to say, because our brush is a mess, that we take this round brush through that nice little Ovaltine stir for a little longer than you should, and give it the wetting tap, roll it on your napkin. And we are going to sign off on our artwork anywhere down on the bottom. You can do it in black. You could do it that same pink color. If you have a really long name, just do some initials. And that will be our last step. Okay. If anybody has any questions, please feel free. Just keep in mind that when you do write with this brush, that you don't want to just go like this. Wham! Just be a little careful in how you're moving that brush. For me, I'm nice and easy, Bob. So I can just go in here, and you can even do it in the bottom of your branch if you want to do it in light and do it in your branch. Please feel free. And I'm just going to ask everyone in person, when you are finished, to just do your best to kindly clean off your brushes, give them a nice little stirring, and I'm going to say do both your flat and your round brush. And I'm going to say just leave them right on the side on the napkin.
And everyone at home has to show us their picture.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So I'm going to say, I hope everyone enjoyed themselves in this session. And again, thank you at home for joining us. I do a lot of virtual and I do a lot of in person, but I've never done a hybrid. This is great. Yes, indeed. That would be wonderful. Yes.
You have to be in it too.
Yes. Okay. All right. So for those at home, I'm going to say thank you so much for painting with us. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. And yay, if you guys do want to hold up your artwork, we can take a screenshot. Yay. Woo-hoo. Wonderful. That looks really good. Yay. Nicely done. It's a wonderful job. Thank you so much.